Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and in today's video we're going to be replacing the factory Double Din in this 2015 Jeep JKU or Wrangler. Now in this install we're going to show you how to remove the factory radio. We'll head over to the bench, show you the parts that we're going to need for the install, including the radio, wiring harness, and dash kit. Then we'll come back here to get everything reinstalled. Let's get started. Now, as we dive into things, a couple of things to note. This Jeep trim actually has the factory Alpine sound system, and you can always see that if you do or do not have that, you'll have the Alpine logo on one of your dash tweeters. If you don't see an Alpine logo, you have the base sound system. The parts that we're going to show you on the bench will take care of all of that. Now, to get this radio on out, we do have to pop out our switches here for our automatic windows. If you have manual windows, you may just have a pocket here, which is just fine. And then also, depending on the year trim, you may have a screw here up top. So first things first, we're going to grab our panel tool here. And we're going to pop out our switches here, and I just kind of work it on out. Now, as you pull that out, you have a little red locking tab here. You need to push that up. Ours is already up here. Once that's pushed up, it's unlocking the tab, so you can press into the little clip, and your switch panel should come free. Again, if you just have a pocket, you won't have a harness there. What that's going to do is expose a 7mm screw. Okay, pull that screw on out. Next here, go ahead and lift up your little rubber mat there. You're going to have a 7mm screw there on the top as well. Go ahead and pull that out. On the left and the right of the steering column here, and if you get your fingers kind of back there and beneath and pull, you can unsnap that panel. This panel right here is held in with clips. There's going to be a screw on the left and the right side of the steering column. We can just give it a pull, release all the clips. Now pull down your steering column to give you a little bit more space, but we're going to lift kind of up and over here. Let's work this on out carefully. And what that's going to leave us is the final 4 screws holding in the actual radio itself. Now, good idea at this point in time to ensure that all your discs are out of the radio before you pull it. Okay, you're going to have a few harnesses in the back to unplug here. Now, most harnesses will have a little tab that you push in, and what that's going to do is release the plug out of the socket, just like that. What we need to do is set this guy up to the side. We're done with our factory radio. Let's head to the bench to show you the parts that we're going to need for our install. All right, so we're here at the bench. Now, the parts that we're going to need for the install, first and foremost, is the radio customer wants us to put in. It's this Alpine ILX-W650, just a great solid Apple Carplay and Android Auto radio. And if you're kind of brand conscious here, it does match the Alpine audio system branding that's already pre-installed by the factory here in this Jeep here today. Now, to integrate our radio, chosen radio in the vehicle, we need a couple of install parts. Dash kit calls for the Metra 95-6511. This does a Double Din dash kit here. Wiring harness, we're going to go with the Pack Audio RP4-CH11. And this essentially will retain both the factory amplified system and the non-amplified. So if you have the factory Alpine, great. If not, this works just fine too. This also will retain our factory steering wheel audio controls in case you have those equipped in your vehicle as well. Finally, some odds and ends here. If you have a factory USB port in your center console, we actually do. You'll need the USB GM1. There is a Metra or Access version that's more specific to this vehicle, but this one still works great. If you don't have the USB in the center console, but you want to relocate the USB that's on the back of the radio for a more factory-looking finish, we do recommend these flush-mount adapters. This essentially can replace a power socket. You can drill and custom mount this as well. It comes with the bracket. Now, the last piece that we need is an antenna adapter. We can link the standard AM/FM Metra adapter in the description. If you also have factory Sirius XM or a GPS antenna, if you have factory nav, we can link those antenna adapters also in the description. We're not retaining the factory navigation or factory Sirius XM, so we just need our standard AM/FM Motorola antenna input. All right, so we've been prepping our wiring harness here. Now you're going to have two sets of harnesses in the pack interface box. You're only going to use one of them because it's two different generation style harnesses. One has more of a square end, and one has a squared with rounded ends. And really all you have to do is go into the card to see which one fits. In this generation Jeep, more than likely it's going to be the one with the rounded edges. The way that this harness works, this end plugs into the car, this end plugs into our pack module, which controls steering wheel controls, retains the amp, everything like that. And then these spare ends will wire into the ends of your radio harness adapter. Now, it is tempting just to go color for color, but remember, not every single radio will match every single aftermarket color guide. There are some that are different here on the pack harness, and especially Alpine, every once in a while they change things up as well. We've already preloaded our harness with some heat shrink, so we'll shrink those connections down as soon as those soldered connections cool. We'll loom up our harness with some high temperature test tape. Alright, so we finished soldering up our connections here, most of which is color for color. However, the areas that are not matching, commonly with pack harnesses and Alpines, there are some typically standard colors that don't match from either company, and we're going to go through those real quick. So these areas that are marked as navigation outputs, on the pack side, our parking brake wire traditionally is a light green. It's not on this. Pack's parking brake is red with a white stripe, as indicated by our instructions here. Now next here, our green wire, which generally is a parking brake, in this case is actually a reverse trigger output. And then the purple white here, which again traditionally is reverse trigger, it's not in this case. Pack has it labeled as a vehicle speed sense. Now our radio doesn't need a vehicle speed sense, not this level of radio, so we're going to go ahead and just cut that so we don't get it confused. So those are those three connections. Now on the Alpine side, it's actually all color for color standard except for these two. Now it's super tempting to connect this orange with a white stripe to the orange with a white stripe on the radio, but they have two different functions even though the wiring color is the same. On this side, it's an illumination or dimmer wire, which will dim the radio whenever this is connected and the headlights are on. Now, on this side, Alpine actually doesn't have an illumination wire in their harness because it's done through a sensor on the radio automatically. So this, our orange with a white stripe over here, is the reverse trigger. Again, that's why you always want to verify the function of the wire and not just solely rely upon the color itself. We also added in accessory power and ground in case we add an accessory down the road or want to power a backup camera. This has a built-in relay and puts out 10 amps. If you have the factory amplified system, meaning if you see that Alpine logo on your tweeter grill, you have to make one special wiring adjustment before you button up your harness. The factory amplified Alpine system actually only takes 2 channels of input instead of 4 channels that our radio is putting out. Those 2 channels of input actually happen to be pinned only on the rear speakers, not on the front speakers. So those 2 channels are 4 wires. What you need to do is hook up your front speakers from your radio to the rear speakers of your harness adapters. Our whites and grays of our radio connect to the greens and purples of our harness adapter. This way, it allows you to ensure that your CarPlay and Android Auto audio functions are correctly being put out through the front speakers. We're going to go ahead and put our heat shrink over those last connections, shrink them down, and we'll be just about done with our wiring harness adapter. Alright, so we finished heat shrinking our tubes. We wrapped our harness in some high temperature test tape here. We zip tied our extra remote turn on in case we had an amp down the road. Have our extra power and ground here in case we had, like I said, extra accessories down the road. We left the relay out just so we can get plenty of ventilation there. And we have our smart module here. Again, this end will go to the input, the WR input on the back of the radio. It looks like an aux, but it's for steering wheel volume controls. Now, before we install this, you have to set the rotary switch here on the side to your selected radio, as indicated by the instructions included with the pack harness. If you don't do that, it's going to cause you issues when getting everything booted up for the first time. Always go through your instructions, regardless of the harness that you're putting in, just to ensure that you don't miss anything or mess anything up. We can set this guy off to the side. Next, let's grab a radio, get it mounted up in the dash kit. Now the dash kit we're going with here today, it actually is a newer version, and it comes with two different styles of little bezels here, whether we have a skinny bezel or we need a larger bezel. If you have a really shallow front face, they come with shallower sides. These ones are the wider sides that take up a lot of that gap here, and the sides that bend in go towards the out. See how it has a little bendy inside here, but not on the other side. This side always faces the dash bezel, not towards the radio. So we found the size that fits us. They screw in here on the side, and then we mounted each bracket to the side of the radio. Last thing here, you may have noticed when you remove the factory radio, you didn't see any sort of USB there. Where that USB in the center console actually connects is there is a Uconnect module back behind the heating and air controls that we have to unplug. It'll plug into our harness, and then we'll reroute this up into the stereo cavity. So we'll show you what that looks like here in a moment. So we'll get this installed in just a bit. So with the radio, dash kit, and wire harness all assembled at this point in time, we can head back to the car to get everything reinstalled. So we're back here in the car. Now, before we get everything reinstalled, a couple of things to note. Depending on the style of the radio that you're installing, you'll notice back here is a factory radio dash support bracket. If this is getting in the way of your new radio, it has to come out. Held in with two 7mm bolts on both sides, and basically unbolts and comes on out. Fortunately for us, because our Alpine is a super shallow mount, it doesn't touch this whatsoever. We don't need to touch this time around. Fortunately for us, it can stay put. If you have a standard size chassis that goes all the way back, it will interfere with this bracket, hence why this will need to come out in your application. Again, pull the two screws, it comes out. Is this crossbar here may bind up, get in the way of your new radio. The instructions do call for you just to simply cut here and remove this crossbar totally, but we do like the support it brings, and usually what we do is we'll use a multi-tool and just cut right along this top edge, leaving this upper piece here in play just to give a little bit support for our radio here in the dash. Having that cross beam will give it a little bit more strength, especially if we're off-roading. Finally here, we'll get you in tight here. This panel needs to come out because the Uconnect module is kind of right here in the center, back behind our heating and air controls. We have to unplug the USB connection there or reroute it using our adapter up into the dash cavity. So let's get started on these little modifications. Okay, so our Uconnect module had two 7mm screws. We removed them temporarily. We're going to put this back just because we don't necessarily have to totally pull it out. But here is the USB to the center console. And what we're going to do now is work this harness up into the radio cavity, and that'll plug into our aftermarket radio. All right, so we're back here in the car. It's time for us to start reassembling both the dash as well as the HVAC controls so we can get our radio all reinstalled. We've got our USB that we ran and tapped into the factory USB connection, and our Bluetooth mic we're actually installing here on the dash bezel once we get the bezel back in. Now our antenna adapter goes in the white one. The yellow one, in most instances, it's for Series XM. Go ahead and get our radio connected here. Made all our connections here, plugged in our steering wheel control cable, our mic. We did a backup camera on this here, USB, and our main harness. At this point in time, let's start getting everything tucked back here in the dash. Okay, let's do a quick test to ensure that everything's working properly. Okay, everything seems to be working. Volume controls, track up, track down. So we can continue reassembling the radio. All right, everything's working great. We got track up, track down, volume up, volume down. That is it for this install. If you have any questions on what we did here, go ahead and post a comment below. If you want to see how we did a backup camera, or you want to see the previous generation, or any of the installs we've done over the years on a JK, we'll link those videos down in the description as well. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to hit the like button if you like what you saw, and don't forget to subscribe. We post great content on the channel all the time, and we will see you in the next video.